Hey guys, welcome back to the Stuff stage at CES 2016. I am lucky enough to be joined by Scott Croyle, who is from NextBit's, who's going to be telling us a little bit about his very disruptive, or his company's very disruptive new phone. Scott, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about the NextBit. We've seen it announced, we've seen people buying it on Kickstarter, but you're here at CES with a release date, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there's a couple things that we're doing. I think the first thing that for our early Kickstarter backers, the first 1,000 people, we've announced a ship date of February 16th.
Cool.
So we're super excited about that. It's a little bit late. We're 2 weeks late. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but I mean, come on.
That's not too bad in Kickstarter terms.
In the Kickstarter terms. So yeah, we're pretty excited about actually having some kind of granularity there. And then for the rest of the Kickstarter backers on the GSM side, we're going to ship the rest of those phones probably a couple days after those early thousands. So we're looking pretty good.
So tell us about the Robin. It's like I say, it's a very disruptive phone. Tell us the main idea behind it and what you're trying to do with this phone.
Well, there's two things I think that's kind of unique about Robin. I think the first thing is that if I were to put an iPhone and every Android phone out on the table here, nothing really stands out.
Right.
We're all kind of bored with kind of what's out there, and I think people are lacking kind of that kind of provocative choice. And that, good design should be provocative. It should tell a story and a narrative. And so with the design of Robin, we tried to come up with something that was kind of very, very different, but it kind of got its premium nature from a different set of values. So if when I was at HTC and we did the M7, now that was the first product that kind of got that all-metal unibody, and then Apple kind of moved after that right after the M7, and then of course a lot of other companies did it. And what that's meant is everything's starting to feel the same.
Right.
Execution quality may be good, but nothing really stands out. And so we wanted to get the premium nature, not to kind of rely on those little tricks of like chamfering metal and whatnot, but come up with this idea of kind of like reducing the design to its very essence.
So can you just hold this up and maybe we can sort of zoom in so you guys can see a little bit of the design. It's a very kind of flat design, but it feels very good in the hands. I like the mint color as well, I have to say. You were saying it appeals more to under 25-year-olds. Sadly, I'm a little bit beyond that age now, but it looks really nice.
Well, you know what I would describe? I think it appeals to people who want something different, that want something that's kind of a little bit that kind of stands up from the crowd. So I think that's one thing. So the second thing that's unique about Robin is it's the first phone that's designed to never run out of space. And what we do is we bake the cloud into the operating system, because you have all this kind of infinite resources of the cloud, right? But when you actually run out of space in your phone, you're at a concert or you're with friends taking photos, and you get that message that says, oh, sorry, you can't save that video or you can't save that photo. You've lost that moment. It's gone forever.
Sure.
And then, of course, you have to go in and figure out, well, what am I going to delete? I'm going to delete some photos. I'm going to delete some apps. Well, we simply use the cloud to kind of enhance the storage on the phone. So it's a 32 gigabyte storage on the phone, but it's got 100 gigabytes of cloud storage integrated into it. Right.
And so I was just looking at the phone before we came on stage. Basically, the icon, so if you haven't got something installed, the icon still appears on the home screen, but it's grayed out, basically.
That's right. So the way it works is that from the time you get Robin and you log in, we start synchronizing your apps and your photos to the cloud. But we do it smartly. We do it when you're on Wi-Fi and when you're plugged in. So there's no extra battery drain. There's no extra power. There's no extra data consumption. And then we simply wait. We simply wait till you've actually filled up that 32 gigabytes, and then we actually look at how you've been using your phone. And let's say you haven't used an application in 6 months. We're like, you know what, that might be a good application to remove from the phone. So we'll remove it from the phone.
Right.
We don't need to be connected to the cloud at that point because we're already synchronized. We remove it from the phone and leave behind that shadow icon. Now, if you want that application, you simply tap it. It brings the application back down. We hook back up the credentials and app data.
Yep.
And it's like it's never been removed from the phone.
Right, and that's all happening in the background automatically. That's
right.
Or the user can probably choose as well.
User just taps it, comes down, you launch it. So like if I'm like using Pandora, all your radio stations are all set up and they're all ready to roll.
And so just going back to the design for a second, you said your history's with HTC and you were there before, but just tell us a little bit about the thinking behind it. So you're saying lots of other phones just very similar right now. You're just trying to stand out a bit from the crowd.
Yeah, I think there's kind of common kind of group think around creating soap bars. You need to have a certain radius on the corner, and a lot of that's I think copying either what HTC or Apple has done, to be honest with you. I think there's very kind of two design-forward companies, or what traditionally were two design-forward companies. And it's just kind of left kind of not a lot of invention that's kind of happening there. So yes, we squared off the corners, but that wasn't the real motivation. Like from a design perspective, we started out thinking about like, okay, let's make this a more personal exercise. And let's hope that whatever we create and like, there's enough people out there that are going to like it also. Because if you start out thinking that I'm going to create something that everybody's going to like, I'm telling you, you can cripple yourself. You're like, where do you start? And so I think the kind of the hope is that you create something that there's enough common ground with other people that you strike a chord with.
Right. Okay. And so that's the thinking behind the phone. So this is the one that's going to be going out to Kickstarter backers.
Well, so there's mint and midnight.
Okay.
There's also for our Kickstarter backers, they chose a third colorway that's available only to them.
Right.
And that one was called electric.
Right. Okay.
So those 3 will be going out to our Kickstarter backers in February.
And what are we looking at in terms of pricing when other people can get a hold of it? Like, is that decided?
So it's actually available for pre-order right now. We're going to close down pre-ordering on January 15th.
Okay.
If you order by January 15th, we'll ship it in February.
Right.
So, and the pricing is $399 US.
Okay.
We support about 45 countries, so most of Western Europe, UK, North America, and then Japan, Taiwan, Singapore, Australia.
Okay. And so when you were talking about before, the app kind of storage is all happening intelligently, but if, for instance, you did run out of 100 gigabytes, if you've got someone who's really into their apps and capturing video, what happens then?
Well, I think right now we're there's only one tier, so it's 100 gigabytes. So if you run out of space, you'll have to do something. You'll have to remove something either from your cloud or from the phone.
Okay.
If we see a lot of, we chose 100 gigabytes. We're not trying to monetize the storage, by the way. The 100 gigabytes comes with the phone. As long as you're using this phone, you have it. If we find that a lot of people are using more than 100 gigabytes, we'll increase that amount.
Right.
If it's the outliers that we think are going to be out there, and we hear enough kind of requests from them to do a second tier, a paid tier or something like that, we'll look into that.
Okay. And just tell us a little bit about the cameras and the other features of the phone.
Yeah, sure.
Let
me run you down through all the specs of the phone. So, by any measure, this is a great Android phone. It's got the Snapdragon 808 processor, a 5.2-inch Full HD screen, dual front-facing speakers, dual amplifiers, a 5 megapixel camera on the front, 13 megapixel camera on the back, a dual LED dual-tone flash. It's got USB Type-C along with Qualcomm Quick Charge, which is super powerful. It's got a fingerprint sensor integrated into the power button over here and NFC on the back, so Android Pay, we're off and rolling on that. It's shipping with Marshmallow, which if you're an Android user, people are super excited about. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've missed on the spec side. I think that about covers it.
And so with this launching soon, you guys must be excited to finally kind of get it out there. Are you starting?
Absolutely.
Are you starting to think a bit about what's next for NextBit, or are you?
No, let's ship this first, and then we can start thinking about that. But of course, we have lots of ideas of where we want to take the software. And kind of the functionality we want to build in. I think we also want to hear from people. One of the reasons we did Kickstarter was it was a unique way for us to actually start a company that's based on a kind of different set of marketing principles. It's based on the idea that we can have a two-way conversation with people as opposed to us, like you design the phone, you have pretty person hold the phone, they stand up on a stage, we look at that and say, I'm either going to be that pretty person or I'm going to hang out with that pretty person.
Right.
We think that's kind of an old school way of doing marketing. We think there's a great opportunity to kind of have a different conversation with people. So we're looking forward to getting the phone out there, getting feedback from people. What do they want us to do on software? We hear stuff like, hey, you know what, can you help me on the setup of my phone? Like, why does it take a couple of hours to log into all these different apps? Or is there anything you can do to enhance my photos, even after I've taken them with these infinite resources of the cloud? Or even stuff like battery life. Could the cloud actually help with battery life? So, there's a lot of things I think that we're hearing already, even though people don't have the phone, that we should be working on. And so, there's lots of ideas churning.
So obviously it was successfully backed. It was a big project on Kickstarter. But do you think that idea of being able to offload to the cloud and stop worrying about storage so much was something that kind of caught people's imagination a little bit?
Yeah, I think there are two things. I think from the design perspective, boom, it catches people's eyes right away, and people are interested. They're interested in something that's fresh. And then absolutely, if you talk to people, the number of people that you talk to that have run out of the space, and then they're in that active management mode, where like every week or every 2 weeks they're like, oh, I've got to go delete some more stuff. Once you're in that state, it's painful. And there's still 16 gigabyte phones coming out, which honestly become feature phones after 3 or 4 months. And so it really kind of leaves people at a disadvantage. So I think that's struck a chord with people that I think, particularly if you're using the cloud one way or another, you're like, oh, okay, that's a kind of a smart, clever way. And it's also, by the way, it's not kind of that 10-year vision of a true cloud phone where you need 5G or 6G speeds. It's kind of this hybrid approach where, we have this kind of native, what we call a native app operating system right now, but we're using the cloud in kind of a smart way where we're cognizant of power consumption, we're cognizant of data consumption, but we're still harnessing all those infinite resources of the cloud.
Yeah. Now we're talking about it. I have that thing now. I'm just thinking about it like once a month having to clear. I have a 5 gigabyte storage plan. I have to clear my photos off, back them up. This is kind of a process that I'm okay with because I'm technologically kind of capable, but my parents or whoever, I don't know what they would do, right? So.
Well, I'm technologically capable. I don't want to spend the time doing it.
No, right.
So I think for me, like the kind of automatic nature is something super great. You don't have to think about anything. You don't have to change your behavior. You just keep using your phone like you've always been using it. I mean, I think one of the other things that we want to do with the operating system, we want to give people some control over that. So let's say there's an app that you never use, but you're like, you know what? Please never remove that app. You can actually pin an application.
Right.
So it basically removes it out of the kind of the queue of what we would take off.
Right. Okay. And so, so the phone is going to be shipping, like you said, February, and then it's going to be available. It's basically available right now if people want to go out there and pre-order
That's right,
it.
until January 15th.
Okay.
And then we'll come back a little bit later on and kind of figure out when the store and going to be more widely available.
And was there anything from the Kickstarter backers that they were really kind of, that you got that was really valuable feedback that you hadn't thought of?
Well, there's a couple things that I just mentioned to you already, but there's 2 things that we did during the Kickstarter campaign, or 3 things that we did during the Kickstarter campaign that were as a direct result of the community. One was that people here in North America told us they wanted a CDMA SKU, something that would work on the Verizon and Sprint network. So we announced that during the Kickstarter campaign that we're gonna do that. We don't have a date for that launch yet. It's coming a little bit later, but we're working hard on that, and it's looking pretty good. So that was one. The other thing, this is kind of just a little bit mundane fact, is that we chose the countries that we support based on the bands, the 4G bands that we support in the phone. And there was one band that we didn't support in Australia, and we're like, oh, well, let's not ship it there. Well, what we heard from people was that, you know what, that band actually, we know it's a 4G band here in Australia. It's not used or it's not leveraged that much. So you should absolutely sell the phone here.
Right.
So we open it up to sales in Australia.
Right.
So these sort of things, that kind of dialogue with people, we're not the experts on everything. We love hearing from people and kind of what their ideas are. But this is some kind of couple examples that we're able to kind of take to heart and kind of actually pivot very quickly on.
So where can people find out more about the Robin?
NextBit.com.
NextBit.com. Yep. Scott, thank you so much for your time. We'll be back with the What Hi-Fi guys in about 10 minutes for the people here who are watching live, and you can find out more about this product on stuff.tv.